I'm going to be covering the Israeli hostage situation because 6 hostages were found. 6 of the hostage bodies were found, and they're dead. And it's a tricky situation because I haven't even looked into it that much, but I suspect that people are going to say, like, Israel is obviously on fire over it. But there's massive protests happening in Tel Aviv where they're like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Get the ceasefire done, you piece of shit. Okay. Tens of thousands of Israelis demonstrated tonight in Tel Aviv protesting the Netanyahu government steps that delay the Gaza hostage deal. So yeah. One of the hostages has video blaming Bibi and the Israeli occupying force. Yeah. Like, shit is completely out of control. Israeli workers will go on a major strike tomorrow. We're going to be talking about that. It's like, if the politicians don't do the job, the people will. You know what I mean? One of the hostages that was found was the son of that hostage family that talked to the DNC. Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's crazy that, like, obviously Israelis, like Israeli society, by and large, is blaming Benjamin Netanyahu, it seems, or at least like the people that are protesting are blaming Benjamin Netanyahu for refusing to fucking come to terms. Okay? And Bibi is like spiraling out of control. He might do some fucking crazy shit as a last ditch effort. So it's definitely a situation that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. We'll start off with that today. We'll talk about the Kamala Harris response that is suspected. Hirsch Goldberg, who was rescued, said the following when he was alive. Benjamin Netanyahu and his government should be ashamed of yourselves because the Air Force bombings killed about 70 detainees like me because all the deals that were offered to you that were rejected. Obviously, this is like, this could be easily coerced as well. But it does correspond to like what a lot of the hostages have said, including Noah Argani, who literally, he was under duress and it was coerced for sure. But like, you have to remember something, okay? Hostages that are no longer fucking coerced and under duress have said similar things in terms of like, how the fuck have you not done a hostage deal? Or we were more afraid of the Israeli bombings than we were of like our captors in general. So that is something that like has consistently been a through line for all of the fucking hostages that have been released, okay, that are like alive and in Israel. So I just need you to understand that in terms of like obviously looking at hostage testimony when they're literally in captivity, of course it's going to be duress. Of course there is going to be a level of coercion going on, but you need to understand like if this cut entirely against like what hostages that have been freed are saying, that would be a different circumstance. But hostages that have been fucking freed have said the exact same shit. And they have no reason to defend the people who held them captive at goddamn gunpoint. Okay? Like, and also the families of the hostages have been treated as straight up in Israel, have been treated as an afterthought or a nuisance. Like people who are spoiling Benjamin Netanyahu's ultimate goal of continuing this fucking genocide. Like, and people who themselves in Israel who want to continue the genocide, you know, because there are plenty of people who do want to continue the genocide, are still like, dog, fucking do the deal first. What the fuck is wrong with you? Okay? Yeah. So obviously we'll be talking about this quite a bit in the upcoming days, considering that it's seemingly coming to like a final, like the final moment. I don't know. It feels as though this is a great escalation of tensions in general. Every time there's like new information about any of the hostages that have been killed, obviously it's like the final straw, it seems, but we'll see. You know they call them terrorists in Nukba unironically? Like, what the fuck is going on? Do you think the Israeli opposition was contacted by the U.S. to spark this end? No, dude. First of all, Israeli and the U.S. is like this, okay? America would not fuck up the bag for Israel because they could have a much easier chance of like making sure that the situation is resolved in an amicable fashion by pushing for a fucking ceasefire. You know what I mean? Like they already have that, and they're not even using that. America is literally aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu. America's own guy in the cabinet quit. America's own guy in the cabinet literally fucking quit. They tried to like push and pull in some ways, and they genuinely failed to do so by like by having their guy Benny Gantz leave the fucking cabinet unceremoniously. So they're doing all the worst shit. Letting Israel do whatever the fuck it wants, letting the Israeli war cabinet and the Israeli government do whatever the fuck it wants is perhaps the worst possible thing you can do. Okay? So that's the situation. U.S. officials once again give cover to Netanyahu. Meanwhile, in Israel, everyone is blaming Netanyahu. I know. Once again, the United States of America's response to the situation is in clear contrast of the Israeli public's response to the situation. If you recall, I said this early October. Remember, we post the posters of the kidnapped, the hostages, for a very different propaganda purpose here in the United States of America as opposed to in Israel. It is the Likudniks that were taking down the fucking hostage posters in Israel because the hostage families were like, our people are there, our family members are there, our cherished loved ones are in Gaza. Stop bombing. Get a fucking ceasefire, which the Israeli government was obviously, for the past 11 months, allergic to, right? In America, however, the hostage posters were used as an offensive propaganda to be like, yeah, no, this is why Israel has to keep fucking bombing Gaza, ironically killing fucking the family members. So, of course, that attitude has still remained. That attitude has still remained in Israel in terms of like hostage families and the way that they have been treated by the government, the way that they have made their demands known to the government versus Western media completely outflanking and dick riding the most ridiculous Likudnik party line here in the Western world. It is crazy. This does not mean that those hostage family protesters are actually super woke and anti-Zionist by any measure. I'm not saying that at all. Many of them probably still want the continuation of death and destruction in Gaza, but they also understand that those bombs are falling on their family members. They also understand that Benjamin Netanyahu's reluctance to come to an agreement with a ceasefire proposal and a hostage negotiation is probably killing their family members. So you have to remember that, okay? You have to remember that when we analyze the situation. The attitude in Israel is very different than the attitude in the United States of America due to the closeness that many people feel in terms of like their loved ones being still stuck in Gaza. Okay?
Israeli military says it recovered the bodies of 6 hostages from an underground tunnel in Gaza on Saturday. The IDF has identified all 6 bodies, which include Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Poland. The Israeli defense...
So Hirsch Goldberg Poland is the Israeli-American whose family members spoke at the fucking DNC, okay? His family members, his mom and dad, are the people that spoke at the DNC, if you remember. So this obviously is more personal for a lot of other people.
The defense minister said the hostages were killed just before troops could reach them.
According to the initial assessment at our disposal, they were brutally murdered by Hamas terrorists a short while before we reached them. They were abducted alive on the morning of October 7th by the Hamas terror organization.
Hamas is blaming Israel for the deaths. A Hamas spokesman said the hostages were killed
That's
by
crazy.
Israel's bombing.
Whoa. Whoa. It's not crazy that Hamas is saying, like, the bombs obviously killed them. What the fuck are you guys talking about? But it's crazy that they're showing the Hamas statement in Western media. That is wild. Whoa. This is new. Chat, this is, in the past 11 months of ongoing genocide, this is one of the first times where I have heard Western mainstream fucking media openly state this is Hamas's position and it is at odds with Israel. That is crazy. I got fucking goosebumps, dude. That is crazy. I've never actually seen any kind of autonomy or sovereignty or any kind of like individual attitude from the side of terrorist barbarians, which is the way that they are depicted usually. That is a wild change of pace.
By the Hamas terror organization.
Hamas
We got to keep pushing. It's the only way we will see any change, and you are a part of this too, man. I know.
is blaming Israel for the deaths. A Hamas spokesman said the hostages were killed by Israel's bombing of Gaza without giving specifics. Now, a group representing the families of Israeli hostages is calling for Prime Minister Netanyahu to address the nation and, quote, take responsibility for abandoning the hostages. Netanyahu released a taped statement this morning blaming Hamas for the murders of the hostages and accused them of not wanting a ceasefire deal. CNN's Nick Robertson joining us now live from Jerusalem with more. Nick, you're also learning some information about these hostages, that some of them were actually slated for release before their bodies were found.
Yeah, Hirsch Goberg, Poland, and Aidan Yerushalmi, and
As an Israeli, I've had zero hope, but this general strike is the genuine end of this genocide. The strike is total and inevitable. What's interesting about the general strike is that there's a couple different things. So Israel, and I'm sure the Israelis in the chat know this already, but Israel's economy is in the shitter, right? It is fucking screaming bloody murder. That's number one. Number two, Israeli interior security is at an all-time low as a direct consequence of the offensive campaign that they're not only conducting in Gaza, but the offensive campaign that they're conducting in the West Bank. So they don't even have enough, in my opinion, and I don't know how they will be able to deal with this, but they don't have enough fucking, like, they don't have adequate coverage if there is a massive, massive general strike that occurs in Israel. So, like, they won't even be able to fucking bust out the APCs and shit that they've used in the Supreme Court protest that happened. In the Supreme Court protest that happened a couple years prior. So, like, it's gotten to a point where it does genuinely feel like a change might occur. Like, it does genuinely feel like a change might happen. Yeah, money is dried up. Israeli startups are folding one after another. You know, there is the Israeli economy was downgraded again a month ago. And not only that, but also you got one port that is completely bankrupt. You have the embargo from Turkey that has like actually shut off some consumer goods to Israel. Like, these are genuine changes that are happening in Israeli society that otherwise has been used to these comforts that you get from being the vassal state, the unsinkable aircraft carrier of the United States of America. Like, it is by definition a part of the imperial core, right? Like, the way that people have designed their lives, the way that people are accustomed to certain things will create a genuine point of pressure, right? And I think that pressure is going to keep mounting, and we will see. Did you see this going on almost a whole year? Yes, I did. I looking at once the bear hug happened, I was like, this is going to continue for as long as Benjamin Netanyahu wishes it. If anything, I'm shocked that there's this much protest happening against the Netanyahu government right now. It's been an entire year of this bloodshed. It's been an entire year of this fucking death and destruction. And in that time frame, Benjamin Netanyahu's popularity went from deeply unpopular to actually solidly popular once again. So that's something that you need to pay attention to. I'm an Israeli chatter, but don't know where to send the vids and protests and shit. Also, hi, Israeli chatter here. I don't know where to post protest vids today or tomorrow. People are gearing up here really hard in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, so it's going to be huge. Also, hi. Yeah. I have, alongside many others, like Ilan Pape, who is obviously much smarter than myself, made that same sentiment before, that like the contradictions are becoming far too glaring. Contradictions are becoming far too glaring for this Zionist regime to continue its apartheid, to continue its genocide, and that it will inevitably be the end. It might take many, many years. It might take decades. It might take fucking weeks. But Israel's own actions, its own vendetta, its own bloodshed that it has caused has not only made it internationally a pariah state, but there is a cost to this. There's a cost that you incur when you engage on this sort of endeavor. Okay? And the smaller you are as a nation, the more reliant you are to outside help as a nation, the shorter time frame you have to continue waging war like this. Okay? That's why I've said, like, something legitimately shifted in both the societal attitudes in Israel after October 7, but I think it basically kickstarted the inevitable downfall of Zionism and more importantly, of course, the apartheid that Israel will now try to redirect back to try and defend itself. It was already a pariah state before the genocide. The difference is that Americans are starting to see that way too. No, that's a huge difference though. Like, the Western world as a whole recognizing Israel for what it is entirely different, because when Western populations start recognizing Israel as a pariah state, because the globe had already seen what Israel was doing, because they had experienced what Israel was doing in different ways throughout their own historical development. But I'm talking about the Western core, the core countries, the NATO nations, the nations within the European Union, like the Western European nations. Like, once their populations started recognizing this, okay, and this has been happening since 2021, I would say, but especially in the last 10 months, once they started recognizing what the fuck was going on, that creates another pressure point internally in their domestic affairs for a lot of these countries. If the broad majorities of your public recognize that this is completely indecent, this is untenable, and yet you are still portraying a completely false narrative inside of your bubble, that puts you at odds with popular mobilization on the ground. And that is a genuine issue, because this isn't Saudi Arabia, this isn't fucking Jordan, right? You can't apply that level of restriction upon your population. And you notice that even in the Abraham Accords nations, what their response has been post October 7 is still very managed. Why is it very managed, despite the fact that they still want weapons contracts from America and they still want to do trade with Israel? Because even they recognize, despite the fact that they obviously have a shit ton more restrictive attitudes at their disposal, that their public is absolutely at odds with the way that they want to continue their foreign policy. You know? This may sound dumb, but I realized Israel was fucked up when I saw World War Z for the first time. That seems insane. You know, this counts as a big deal if the U.S. media is covering it and sharing Hamas statements, as you said. That's the barometer for big deal if it catches U.S. media cycle. Exactly. For all of the talk that always occurs around nothing ever happens, things are always happening. It's just that nothing ever happens is a very Western chauvinist attitude, right? This is something that I have talked about quite a bit. There's this meme, for those of you who don't know, online of nothing ever happens, okay? The end of history. I think it was Francis Fukuyama who originally said, like, it's over, it's done. Post-Cold War, end of history. History will never, the trajectory of our lives is never going to dramatically change. Now, of course, obviously, things are happening all the fucking time. It's just that in the West, nothing ever happens means nothing happens to me, okay? Nothing ever happens to me. Things are not disrupted in my life, right? That's what that means. That's what the nothing ever happens crowd is actually saying. And this, or at least this, CNN, referring to Hamas statements being at odds with the Israeli government, is a change in trajectory. It's a change in the way that American media is covering this issue. That's something happening. That's something happening that even the nothing ever happens crowd recognizes. Okay? So this is a big fucking deal. Okay? This is a big fucking deal. Zionism will be hard to overcome in Germany. We're not talking about Germany. Germany is in an entirely different fucking world of its own. I don't even want to get into Germany. I'm disgusted with everything that I've seen. I saw an anti-Semitism report from Germany on TikTok where the TikToker went through like each individual incidents that were considered anti-Semitic, and it was so disgusting, dude. It was so disgusting. There's like fucking people attacking a synagogue, which is a real anti-Semitic crime, right? Listed alongside with the same level of severity as someone getting together at a gathering and saying the International Court of Justice's own position, like reiterating the position that Israel is currently occupying Palestinian territory and it must immediately stop its occupation. That was considered an anti-Semitic incident mentioned alongside like fucking attacking a synagogue. So you're putting neo-Nazis and in often instances protests led by German Jews in the same fucking category. You are out of your goddamn mind, okay? You're out of your fucking mind. I don't even want to talk about Germany. I don't want to even think about Germany. Germany, I'm done with it, okay? I'm fucking done with Germany. Ridiculous. Yeah. Germany can't even fucking on accident be on the right side of history. It's ridiculous.
Kamal Gat were all slated to be released in the first phase under sort of humanitarian grounds, the first phase of release. Hirsch had become a sort of a symbol, an international symbol, if you will, for the hostages, not just because of the brutal pictures that everyone saw when he was captured. He'd lost his left arm, and the narrative that we learned after his capture that had happened as he was trying to sort of defend and fend off hand grenades and gunshots from Hamas. But then Hamas cynically and brutally used him in a propaganda hostage video in April this year, where you could clearly see he had lost his left arm. Everyone in this country and I think around the world could really see what was happening to the hostages and how they were being used. But these three were expected to be in the first phase of release. There are huge political recriminations, not just from the family of the hostages, not just even from opposition politicians here, but also even the defense minister calling on the prime minister to revisit the cabinet vote last week that many people believed shut down the possibility of getting a hostage deal through. The prime minister has given a statement and he's defended his position and is blaming Hamas for what's happening.
In recent days, as Israel has been holding intensive negotiations with a mediator in a supreme effort to reach a deal, Hamas is continuing to steadfastly refuse all proposals. Even worse, at the exact same time, it murdered 6 of our hostages. Whoever murders hostages does not want a deal. For our part, we will not relent. The government of Israel is committed, and I am personally committed, to continue striving towards a deal that will return all of our hostages and ensure our security and our existence.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. People who murder hostages don't want to do a deal. People who murder the hostage negotiator don't want a deal. It's just that both of those things are happening, and Israel is doing them. So, you know, something to consider when he says, oh, people that fucking murder hostages or people that murder the hostage negotiator, for example, they probably are not invested in a fucking deal, are they? You can't continue this charade, okay? Especially when people literally fucking are like, dude, there was a hostage deal. You're supposed to get it done. You're supposed to get it done. You're supposed to get this fucking hostage deal done. And their family members are on the other side, you know? Like, you guys are saying shooting aid workers, or shooting, random Palestinian children, like people that don't give a fuck about that, okay? Israeli society members who don't give a fuck about that still care about their family members, okay? You need to understand that. You need to understand that. People who literally think like, oh, it's not a genocide, it's an offensive campaign that we have to do whatever, are still like, dude, get the deal done. Get the fucking ceasefire done, you piece of shit. My family members are there. My friends are there. Okay? Do you understand? Do you get it? Like, this is very, very important to recognize. Okay? Very important to recognize, because does Hamas want a deal? Of course Hamas wants a deal. Come on, dude. How many months have we covered this? Of course they want a deal. And the deal has been basically on the fucking table for 10 months. Here, listen to Israeli hostage negotiators. We later found out that Hamas had offered on October 9 or 10 the release of all civilian hostages in exchange for the IDF not entering the Strip, but the government rejected the offer. Okay? The Israeli government spokesman says war will continue even if all hostages are released. This war has to end with the end of Hamas, Elan Levy told the BBC. Okay? Do you understand? Yeah, there's also internal documents that came out from Dropsite News, which we will cover in a second. We'll get to that. Hamas had already accepted the U.S. deal, by the way. Hamas says it accepts Biden's ceasefire deal without new Israeli conditions. That was a couple days ago. Hamas, there is a deal on the table. America presented it months ago. The United Nations voted for the deal, okay? Everyone wants that deal. The problem is Israel does not want the deal. And it's not even Israeli society. The only people that don't recognize what is going on are people who unfortunately live in the United States of America and are fucking deluded by our media and Anthony Blinken and the administration regularly fucking lying. Okay? That's why for months I've been saying over and over again, there's a deal on the table. Israel is the only one that's spoiling this deal. All the way up until like Israel literally fucking killed the principal negotiator, which even then people looked at and thought, oh, well, he's a Hamas guy, so who gives a shit? You are not above propaganda, okay? You are still incredibly susceptible to propaganda. It is understandably not something that you pay attention to. You don't have this expectation that mainstream media is going to have a set of biased narratives that they go with that completely go against the reality on the fucking ground, okay? You don't have that expectation. So you rely on mainstream media. It is understandable to rely on mainstream media. I still rely on mainstream media very much so. But you have to understand that when it comes to American foreign policy, especially in the way that American foreign policy analyzes Israel or currently sees Israel as an incredibly valuable ally that no matter how hard they go, they will still defend. Okay. I don't blame you for reading a CNN article or two and then having a very different reality, like having a false understanding of what's going on, because there is a shit ton of misinformation out there that is presented as like genuine truths, even though it doesn't fucking make any sense whatsoever. Okay? You don't have this expectation that the State Department officials are going to come out and be like, no, it's Hamas ruining the fucking deal. I promise you, right? And then have that be the exact opposite of reality. Why the fuck would you ever expect that? These are people in positions of power, and there's an expectation that they're going to be truthful. They're not. They're just simply not. And Israel is doing everything it can in its fucking power to... Israel's doing everything it can in its fucking power to basically show you that that's not the reality, that they are the spoilers. Listen to Benjamin Netanyahu. He regularly says, yeah, no deal, no deal, no deal. We're not fucking pulling the troops out of the Philadelphia corridor. No deal. We're going to add new conditions onto the fucking pre-existing hostage negotiation in an effort to fucking keep the hostage negotiation out there, dangle it like a fucking carrot, and continue pummeling Gaza as they have. And America plays along with it. Okay? Look at this reality from the Times of Israel. Hostage families say hostages would still be alive if it weren't for the saboteurs, the excuses, and the spin. On CNN, Blinken says Israel has agreed to the U.S. proposal to close remaining gaps on ceasefire deal and calls on Hamas to do the same. I don't think you understand. Like Israeli news is outflanking American news on this issue in perpetuity. Okay? These are not outlets that are fucking anti-Zionist. The Times of Israel is not an anti-Zionist institution. Even Haaretz, which does have anti-Zionist writers every now and then, but has a variety of different perspectives. Ynet, Channel 12, Khan. There are, with the exception of like the BB Dick writer channels, many of these outlets are writing truthfully about the situation, about the frustrations that Israeli society has. Okay? American media does not have to do that because they are far removed from the reality on the ground. So they can work to manufacture consent at the behest of the American State Department. This is a good take as well. Israeli media doesn't need to do this dance because Israeli society is fine with the colonial situation in general. That too. For sure. What is the most powerful anti-Zionist source in Israel? 972 Magazine and Local Call are two phenomenal investigative reporter outlets that have uncovered so many of the stories that you hear months later from like Western news sources like The Guardian. Okay? Plus 972 Magazine and Local Call are two phenomenal institutions of journalism inside of Israel. They do incredible work. Local Call. Okay? They're great. They're great. Anyway. Even Haaretz is more critical in Israel than most Western outlets. Yes, Haaretz is seen as like a leftist, liberal newspaper, even though they do still have very much like Zionists on their payroll who like write insane articles every now and then. Also, not journalists, but B'Tselem. Yes, B'Tselem is an Israeli human rights group. They're phenomenal as well. But, what is this? Don't you think Hamas has also made a lot of allegations and is not doing any good to Palestinians, regardless of them saying they want a ceasefire and pro-Palestine, by the way? What do you mean? Hamas has made a lot of allegations and is not doing good to Palestinians. What are we talking about here? What? I'm pro-Palestine, by the way. I'm confused as to what you're trying to say. I genuinely don't understand it. Haaretz also has Gideon Livy, who is a Sigma male. Yeah, Gideon is great. Follow Palestinians and anti-Zionist Israelis like BM. I really hate you for accurate Palestine news. Yeah, that's another one. Hamas is a resistance group against the Israeli apartheid. I don't know what you're trying to say, though. Like, what allegations has Hamas made? So, let's take a look at how this fucking Satan spawn right here is reacting.
Existence.
But I think I should also just give you a sense of some of the heartbreak that the families are feeling. The cousin of Carmel Gat, who was visiting her family in the nearby to the Nova Music Festival, Kibbutz Be'eri. She was 40 years old. She was an occupational therapist.
Hamas is a fascist group. Oops, I didn't mean to ban you, but I mean, what you said is ridiculous regardless. Hamas is not a fucking fascist group, brother. What the fuck are you talking about? The fuck? He said Hamas is a fascist group who killed all the lefties in Palestine. You're just wrong. Literally wrong. You know who has been responsible for more Palestinian leftists being fucking butchered, slaughtered, tortured? Fatah. Okay? The Palestinian Authority. Hamas, on the other hand, is a resistance group that is the leading resistance group that has collaborated with all of the rest of the Palestinian resistance groups, which include PFLP and DFLP. So you're absolutely wrong about that. Okay? And some of their demands are literally releasing high-level Palestinian hostages currently under Israeli detention that will literally actually write them out of civil governance. Okay? The people that they want to release from DFLP, PFLP, and even Fatah at times are actually more popular leaders that are directly at odds with their political ambitions and will absolutely, obviously I'm talking about Marwan Barghouti, which Marwan Barghouti is, if released, which is one of the highest priority targets that Hamas demands the release of, okay? Marwan Barghouti will most likely completely write out Hamas from ever having a civil governance if he is released. And they still want to release them. There are aspects of the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas that are Islamist fundamentalist. This much is true. But ultimately, Islamism is not the reason why they are resisting. They are resisting, and it's not anti-Semitism either. They're resisting because there is an apartheid. They're the only game in town. Okay? They're the only fucking developed enough group that has the means, the necessary resources, and the momentum to actually fight back against Israel's brutal, cruel regime. Okay? I'm scared, guys. Wait, I think Hamas is different than any other jihadi groups, in my opinion. Hamas is not a jihadi group. What are you talking about? Jihadi group? What do you mean jihad? If you, like, Americans think, like, Salafist, like ISIS, is jihad. It's not. Jihad just means struggle, resistance, or not resistance, but like it means struggle. It could be going to the gym is jihad, if that's what you're not using the correct interpretation. But if I were to lean into your interpretation of the term jihad, which is just a fucking post 9/11 buzzword, okay? Jihad is not a bad thing. But in American media, it is represented as like what ISIS is doing, which is not jihad. Okay? Hamas is not even remotely close to ISIS or any of those other Salafist groups. As a matter of fact, they're at odds with a lot of those Salafist groups. I'm not American. Jihad is an Arabic word for Islamic. I'm not American. Jihad is an Arabic word for Islamic conquerorship. Motherfucker said, I'm not American. I'm just a racist. He's like, I'm not American. I'm just a Euro fascist. You know what I mean? No, let me tell you. Yeah. Jihad means struggle or effort. Exactly. No, but going to the gym is jihad, lol. Everyone knows what jihad is. Stop equivocating. It literally... Oh my God. What is happening right now? I'm saying even your false Islamophobic understanding of jihad, where you're using that as a substitute word for like doing terrorism or whatever, in like ISIS style activities, okay, which is incorrect. I'm one, correcting the common misconception that people have, and then two, leaning into the common misconception that people have. I'm Muslim Arab, lol. Okay, sure, bud. I'm Muslim Arab. I'm Muslim Arab. We are trying to conquer Europe by doing jihad. I'm Muslim Arab, and I'm here to do jihad by raping white women in Sweden. That's my jihad. That's what we mean when we say jihad. Islamic conquerorship. We want to implement the caliphate in Berlin. Like I don't speak Arabic, okay? But that's what it means in Arabic, okay? I don't know why the fuck, dude, I need you guys to understand something, okay? Narratives and perception oftentimes is significantly more popular and more important than the actual reality. This is why in the Western world, I can have a conversation with someone who says, I'm pro-Palestine, I'm an Arab Muslim, and jihad means Islamic conquerorship. And there are a shit ton of people who literally believe that when it's simply not the fucking truth, okay? And it's crazy to me. It is crazy to me that I can't even address a common misconception that people have without people being like, no, you're wrong, actually. It just means like blowing up places. Okay? The word in and of itself means something entirely different than the way it's presented in the Western world. But even if you were to operate on that understanding, what Hamas is doing is not that, okay? But it's crazy to me overall that like people will unironically run with this narrative. Yeah, I mean the Wikipedia the Wikipedia itself, you could just like Google it, is an Arabic word which literally means exerting, striving, or struggling, especially with a praiseworthy aim. In an Islamic context, it can refer to almost any effort to make personal or social life conform with God's guidance, such as internal struggle against evil in oneself, efforts to build a good Muslim community, ummah, and struggle to defend Islam. In non-Muslim societies, the term is often associated with offensive warfare and violence. That's why, like I said, going to the gym could be jihad. But that sounds silly when like everyone is primed to think, oh, it means saying Allahu Akbar, which also means God is great. But from an American standpoint, from a Western standpoint, it means scary guy about to go boom, boom, because you're fucking racist. I don't know how else to describe it to you. Like you are just a racist person. And I am over here trying to explain to you a concept that is not true, but you don't give a fuck. Anyway, which is crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy that like this is a point of contention, even in a community such as this one. Okay. Oh. Anyway. But that's not even what I'm talking about, for the record, because I understand where that chatter was coming from when he was using jihad as a substitute word for like Salafist terror. Okay. And Hamas is not. Not only are they ideologically at odds with Salafists, okay, Oh my God, dude. We got fucking what's her face? Another Aya Hershey. Another what was it? Was it Aya Hershey Ali? Ayan Hershey Ali type in the chat. In an Islamic approach has many rules, such as taking women hostages. If you read the Quran, it always refers to war. Thanks, man. Or woman. Yeah. No, definitely. You're right. Oh. Why am I having this conversation with this fucking psychopathic demon, dude? Thank you, Chatter, for coming in here and being like, listen, I'm a Muslim Arab, and jihad means doing terror on white children and also capturing white women, specifically in war. Okay? No, it's a good combo to have. A lot of people just learn for the first time what jihad really means. No, because a lot more people who already have this priming to believe the false notion will just go along with it and be like, this guy unjustifiably got banned in the chat because he's saying the truth as an Arab Muslim. You don't understand. You don't understand white boys like I do, okay? There are plenty of people, for as many people who are open-minded and are going, I didn't know this. Now I'm learning about it. There is a shit ton more people who are like, no, that guy was speaking the truth and Hassan banned him unjustifiably. Okay? Trust me. This is like when people don't understand the term martyr. I know. In Iran, we have a Ministry of Agricultural Jihad. Does this guy think they're terrorist farmers? Yes. They're terraforming. Terror farming. Like, you will never be able to explain it. Like, there's motherfuckers named Jihad, bro. What do? Do you think that guy is named Jihad? The term jihad is mentioned in 41 instances in the Quran. Most occurrences are linguistically related to the exercise of effort, juhd, and the deployment of energy on 10 occasions, in relation to the path of God on 13 occasions, or in the context of combat. Yeah, they're doing terror farming. Anyway, let's get back to this. Yeah, there's dudes named like Jihad. I suspect that when Americans hear that a dude is named Jihad, they mean like, oh, they think like, oh, this is a terrorist who's going to do terror, and that's why he's named doing terrorism to white people.
She saw her mother be killed in front of her eyes by Hamas before she was abducted. And her cousin wrote this letter, and I just read some of it because it's so poignant and captivates the sense and the mood and the loss here. He says, sorry, Carmel. Sorry we didn't stop it when it was possible. Sorry we let them kill you. I wish you saw and heard, and I wish you even saw with your own eyes, and that I'm sorry you saw with your own eyes the murder of your mother. I wish you discovered that your father and your brother and your sister-in-law and your niece survived. I wish you saw how your friends fought to bring you alive. I wish you hadn't heard the Prime Minister say that the Philadelphia corridor, the sticking point in the negotiations, is more important than your life and the lives of the other hostages. I can only imagine.
Bro, they're literally writing scathing letters about like the minutia of Benjamin Netanyahu's like holdout positions in Israeli society. It's actually shocking that they named the Philadelphia corridor as a point of contention in this letter, because that is directly what Benjamin Netanyahu is using as a reason as to why he does not want to fucking do this hostage negotiation and ceasefire proposal, which is crazy that it's on CNN now. I am actually shocked. Of course, it should have never gotten to this, but I'm actually legitimately confused as to what my eyes are seeing, what my ears are hearing from CNN. This is not a thing that I ever would have thought would happen on CNN. And not only that, okay, I love how you hate Israel so much that you don't even mention Hamas. I love the hypocrisy. What hypocrisy? What is the hypocrisy? I am mentioning Hamas. I've talked about Hamas quite extensively on this broadcast for the past 11 months. How the fuck would I avoid talking about Hamas when talking about the situation in Gaza? You are just making up a position in your mind and also ascribing hypocrisy to this position that you made up in your fucking mind. I have not stopped talking about Hamas. I was just talking about Hamas. That chatter said a verbatim post on Twitter I read earlier. This is either a child or someone too stupid to engage with. Yeah. Bibi is defending his true homeland, Pennsylvania. Now, here's the thing. I love how you hate Israel. Yeah, I mean, that's not, I will always have hatred in my heart for any government that does this level of unimaginable bloodshed to majority civilian, children, women, elderly, just completely unconscionable. Of course. Yeah, I'm Israeli. The whole reason this is happening is because Netanyahu won't engage in a deal because he's power greedy. He is 100%. What's next? You hate Rhodesia? Yes. I want to know what that chatter was saying earlier. Like he's like, you don't even talk about Hamas, which is ridiculous. Of course I talk about Hamas. Hamas would cease to exist if Israel did not maintain an apartheid regime. Okay. So you hate the Turks for what they did to the Armenians? Great question. If you can find a moment where I have ever fucking denied the Armenian genocide, I told you, I'll give you 10 grand, okay? And not like a thing that's clipped out of context where I'm in the process of talking about the Armenian genocide where you make it seem like I'm denying it. Okay? This is such a funny fucking take from a bunch of dumbasses who literally come in. Norwegian socialist, by the way. Norwegian socialist. I doubt that you're an actual Norwegian socialist. One of the countries that's like actually pretty fucking critical. Your own investment fund is currently in the process of divesting from Israel, and you're over here being like, so you hate the Turks for what they did to the Armenians? What a fucking silly take. You are a racist piece of shit. I know that's good. Oh, suck my dick. Oh, you know that's good? That's like Trump being like, oh, I'm glad that I called into question Barack Obama's birth certificate, so now we all know that he actually was born in America. You fucking bitch. We know exactly what you're doing. You see a Turkish man, you think, oh, he must deny the Armenian genocide, and you racistly fucking use that shit. You think I don't hear this every fucking day of the week? Hypocrisy baiting assholes who immediately ascribe these fucking ridiculous positions because, oh, he's Turkish. As an Israeli, most Israelis are against keeping the Philadelphia corridor. We all know he's using it to stay in power. If there would be a ceasefire, there would be elections. He will no longer be the PM. I don't even know, because I feel like, I mean, this last like mass protest, mass mobilization aside, and we are going to cover the Israeli demonstrations. We are in the process of it. Hold on, chatter. Like his popularity has increased. It was in the shitter post October 7. Many Israelis also were like, bro, you fucked this up. You were the security candidate. You did not give us security at all. It's the least secure we've ever felt. You know? And since then, his popularity has only gone up as he continued this fucking thing. What is the Philadelphia corridor? The Philadelphia corridor is the southernmost point of the Gaza border crossing that is Rafah. That is like the corridor between Rafah in the Gaza Strip, the southernmost corridor, and Egypt. And Benjamin Netanyahu overtook it when he violated Joseph Robinette Brandon's red line by invading Rafah. And he even invaded parts of Egyptian land as well, Egyptian territory as well, okay? And took over the entire southern border of the Gaza Strip and Egypt. But yeah, I will cover the Israeli demonstrations. I'm shocked that, according to polling, Bibi was down bad pre-October 7 and probably would have lost the election due to the Supreme Court reforms after 10/7. His popularity went down even further and has since recovered. Yeah. So the reason why the Netzarim corridor and the Philadelphia corridor is a point of contention is because Benjamin Netanyahu is like, we're going to do a ceasefire, okay, a three-phase ceasefire negotiation that the United States of America presented as the Israeli proposal months ago at this point, that the United Nations voted on, that Hamas has agreed to, okay, multiple times at this point, that is identical to the Hamas proposal that was presented all the way back in February, mind you, okay? Benjamin Netanyahu's added additional conditions to that, which is a permanent occupation of the Philadelphia corridor and the Netzarim corridor, which cuts across Gaza and also controls the southern point as well. Okay. This is a new point of contention that Benjamin Netanyahu added on as a poison pill to the existing ceasefire proposal that the American leadership has consistently lied and said Israel is actually on board with. Okay. In Israel, obviously, Israelis are aware that Benjamin Netanyahu's added this extra position in an effort to poison the actual ceasefire deal. Because, of course, you cannot have a fucking ceasefire and permanent cessation of hostilities without fucking actually removing troops. Okay? So the people who are closest to the matter are obviously more privy to the information and more aware of what the fuck is actually going on, as opposed to people in the Western world that are deluded by mainstream media into thinking that the situation is very different and it's actually Hamas that's playing the role of the spoiler here. Okay? Here. Israel's plans to stay in Gaza. Following are some revealing quotes from a column by Netanyahu's mouthpiece, Amit Segal. The prime minister is not telling the truth. The truth is this. As far as Netanyahu is concerned, Israel plans to stay in Gaza for the next generation. We are now returning to another old experiment conducted between 1967 and 2005, military bases between Gaza and Rafah. This is exactly the presence Netanyahu means when he talks about Israeli military control and civilian control of other parties. That's why a two-lane freeway is currently being paved on the Philadelphia axis. And that's why entire divisions are located where Rafia Yam, Netzarim, Eli Sinai, Nisanit, and Dugat, Israeli dismantled Gaza settlements, once were. This does not mean that there will be no deal. It can be carried out as a pause, a temporary withdrawal, but the negotiations only emphasize how much Israel opposes a total withdrawal from the Strip. Okay? There remains the question of ruling over 2 million Palestinians. Another possibility is that there will be less than 2 million. A crossing to Rafah will open and allow emigration from Gaza by sea or by air. Several sources indicate a great desire to leave. Rest assured, Gush Katif will not return. It is more likely that a more sympathetic American administration would perhaps tacitly agree to the establishment of Nahal outposts on the northern perimeter near Ashkelon. Ministers are pressuring Netanyahu to order a total evacuation of Gaza City from its last 100 to 200,000 inhabitants. The security justification is the removal of the threat to the Netzarim corridor. The real justification is the shock and despair that this will sow. It's funny that it seems the media here in Israel is more anti-Israel than the media over there in America. No, the media in Israel has to a certain degree, accurately cover what the fuck is going on. Okay? Israelis are closer to the situation. They are not as oblivious as Americans are. This does not mean that these outlets are anti-Zionist by any means. There's two different reasons. One, because the Israeli society's attitude towards the IDF and towards, like, you know, death and destruction in Gaza is, I hate to, there are Israeli chatters in here, I'm sure they will agree with me, a little bit different than the Western world's attitudes. They're closer to the problem. They're closer to feeling some type of way, okay? And for that reason, they are already primed with total death and destruction. Not the entirety of society, but plenty, like broad majorities of the Jewish citizens of Israel especially, okay, which comprise obviously the overwhelming 2/3 majority of Israeli society, are fully primed and invested, dare I say, in the death and destruction of Palestinians, or at the very least can turn a blind eye to that death and destruction. Israeli media also rarely ever covers the atrocities that are ongoing in Gaza for a specific reason, continuing the manufacturing of consent in Israel for Benjamin Netanyahu's quote-unquote war. It's his offensive siege. Having said that, however, there is obviously a closeness to the situation in terms of like having Israeli citizens that are still being held captive in Gaza, and therefore they can't go in the same propaganda direction that like Americans can. American media can do that because there isn't that same level of closeness. This is something that I brought up pretty early on. When we talked about the hostage posters and the role that it plays in Israel versus the exact opposite role that it plays in America. Hostage posters were placed in the United States of America all around big cities with the effort to continue to say, like, look, this is why we're fucking blowing up Gaza. This is why they deserve it. Whereas in Israel, hostage posters were being ripped up by Likudniks, Bibists, because they were seen as like a hurdle, a nuisance, a spoiler to Benjamin Netanyahu's like bountiful claims to Gaza and whatever he wanted to do. For Americans, this is in the background. In Israel, it's the foremost issue. Exactly. If Israeli media accurately represents the situation, what is the Western media's motivation for not accurately reporting? Old habits die hard. The American State Department interest, as it stands, it is being guided by rabid ultra-Zionists, okay? Like at the top level, at the highest level, you got Blinken and you got Biden. And you have Kirby. Those guys are some of the most ideological ultra-Zionist zealots you have ever encountered, okay? Straight up. Like, I would say Biden being the most rabid, okay? Biden is one of the most rabid ultra-Zionists you have ever encountered in American politics, okay? What is this? Remember me, June 11th, 2024? I don't think so. What, did you get banned or something? And you came up with a new article? I mean, a new account? For that reason, Western media, which obviously, if they covered this situation accurately, would develop unimaginable anti-Israel sentiments in the Western world. Think about the anti-Israel sentiment that exists in the Western world right now, in spite of the broad media coverage defending Israel. Okay? Think about that. Now imagine if the media was accurately reporting the story. A lot of you already come here and hear what is actually happening and develop this attitude. There would be a lot more people who have that exact same attitude that you have. This would put America at odds with the State Department, okay? This would create even broader popular sentiment in the United States of America in terms of a real push for a ceasefire and maybe even the dissolution of the apartheid. Obviously, the media has two different roles. One, to accurately portray the truth, but also maintain a shred of legitimacy so they can, next time they cover something important and they have to lie to you, you have to believe them. The other responsibility they have is to obviously toe the line and play a role in defending America's strategic interests in the globe. That is the issue here. That's why sometimes they will actually seep in accurate coverage of what's going on, like when Clarissa Ward snuck into Gaza with the Qatari healthcare workers to offer some of the only insights that we've seen in Western media at the time from inside of a fucking Gaza field hospital. Okay? I don't know if you know this, but Israel is essentially going to be borked tomorrow due to the mass protest. The hostage families are called to not open any schools and close a lot of public facilities. If only someone could protest and close the segue at the top of the hour ad break. Jesus Christ. This motherfucker is... I thought... Aren't you literally in Israel, bro? That's fucked up. That's like time without an ovo coming in here to fucking hit me with a top of the hour ad break debate. That's crazy. If you are a known Israeli chatter in here, you can't be fucking using that. You can't be using that additional influence for evil like this. That's crazy. That's crazy. He also actually correctly talked about this thing that is going on. God damn. Fuck me. Holy shit. Okay, well. I got. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. I got cooked. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe, which you can for $6 or for free with a Twitch Prime. Okay. You can also get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Yeah, gagged you I fear? Yeah, don't fear. I did get gagged, okay? I did. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Debated with factual information is wild. Yeah, from like directly on the ground factual information in real time. We'll talk about the strike in the national strike that has been called in Israel in a second. Let's continue.
How much rage that must have filled you with. These are such poignant words, and of course these are words that we're going to hear from so many family members who are absolutely devastated with the loss and the sense that not just the first 3, but all of these 6 could have been released through negotiations, through a ceasefire deal.
So heart-wrenching to hear, Nick Robertson. Thank you very much. The families of the killed hostages are speaking out this morning after hearing the news of their loved ones.
The family of Hirsch Goldberg Poland said in a statement, with broken hearts, the Goldberg Poland family is devastated to announce the death of their beloved son and brother Hirsch. The family thanks you all for your love and support and asks for privacy at this time. Elliot Godkin joins us now. Elliot, most of us remember seeing his parents there at the DNC just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it is the Goldberg family is the family that spoke at the DNC.
Telling him, if you are watching...
They're American Israelis, okay? And their son is also an American citizen as well as an Israeli citizen.
If you are listening, survive. And now this news. What else can you tell us about these hostages?
Victor,
how could the American government be so fucking stupid? How could the Kamala campaign be so fucking unimaginably stupid, dude? Like, you think this shit wasn't gonna happen? Are you fucking delusional? Are you dumb? Like, are you that fucking dumb, really? I'm an idiot. I've said it for months at this point. It's like leaving this up as an untied, unresolved situation, and that unresolved situation is literally genocide. But even if you don't give a fuck about brown people being killed, like, you think that there aren't going to be more fucking humanitarian aid workers that get killed, for example. White ones, too, as a matter of fact. Like, it's gonna happen. It is inevitable. You think this shit is not going to move the needle again just because it's Brat Summer for like 3 fucking weeks? You think that it was going to be Brat Summer and then Brat Autumn? You think Vibes would be able to, and Joy would be able to carry the Democratic Party across the finish line without this becoming a fucking major issue again? I don't understand it. Yeah, new ABC poll came out today. Who would handle Israel Hamas better? 33% say Harris, 40% say Trump. What did I tell you? the more Harris comes out and ties herself to Biden, the more the American population will fucking broadly associate her with the unpopular policies of Brandon and will literally fucking will keep falsely thinking that Donald Trump is going to be better on this issue. And it's not an issue that you want to be the top priority. Okay. You're already getting destroyed on immigration. This is why those poll results are slanted in the opposite direction. Okay. She had an opportunity and momentum to cut against the Biden campaign on this front. It's not that long ago where a similar situation took place within the Democratic Party with LBJ. It is so fucking frustrating. It is so frustrating. I've been screaming from the goddamn rooftops about this for months at this point. Even before Biden dropped out, and certainly after Biden dropped out. Why do you think she's doing it? Because she's a blank slate and also a fearful politician. She is leading by fear. Okay, she's running a fearful campaign. She's running scared, just like Democrats usually do.
Yes, very poignant that his parents were so vocal and visible in their advocacy for the release, not just of their son Hirsch, but also for all of the hostages. As you say, they spoke at the Democratic National Convention and indeed joined or got the audience all to, in unison, chant, bring them home, which has become a refrain for the families of hostages who were kidnapped in the Hamas-led terrorist attacks of October the 7th. The parents had met with President Joe Biden as well. And of course, if anyone can remember those searing images from October the 7th, one of the ones that sticks in the mind most was that of Hirsch with half of his left arm blown off, being herded onto the back of a truck and being taken into Gaza. Now, we have a first-hand account from one of his friends from that day saying that they had taken refuge in a small bomb shelter as they were trying to flee from the onslaught, and that as the militants were throwing hand grenades into this bomb shelter, that Hirsch was throwing them out. And it was in the course of throwing those grenades out of the bomb shelter to protect himself and, of course, the others who were in there that he suffered that injury. And that stump was visible again when he was used in that propaganda video back in April that Nick was just referring.
So Israel bombed the hostage dev? We don't know. I don't know. I don't know if they executed the hostages when Israel went in to retrieve them, or if they died under the rubble from Israeli bombs. The higher likelihood is still obviously dying to Israeli airstrikes, considering that Israeli airstrikes have been responsible for the overwhelming majority of the deaths. But this time it might be different. It might have been that that they knew that an extraction was slated to happen and they killed them. And I think that's what the reporting is suggesting as well. That Hamas shot them when they knew that they had no other alternative. Has Israel ever released the cause of death for hostages in a trustworthy format? No, I don't. I not necessarily, because they do still have a responsibility to portray the truth. Like, there is obviously a level of propaganda that they want to do, but usually these are Israeli civilians or Israeli soldiers, and their family members will demand to know what the truth is. So they don't broadly publicize it. They don't broadly publicize exactly how some of the hostages die, but family members will literally come out and be like, they died under rocket fire. Now, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if this is one of those instances. Daniel Hagari said they died a short time before they got there, if I recall correctly. Major respect for holding off on complete confirmation, solidifying my trust in you yet again. Yeah. Despite what the naysayers in my vicinity say, yeah, it's not, except for the 3 of those that they accidentally shot. Well, they didn't accidentally shoot them. They shot them point blank. They did shoot the Israeli soldiers did shoot 3 hostages point blank that were escaping. But this article came out immediately after the announcement. Must make it 100 times more devastating. It was right there. No, but come on, do you want them to release the autopsy? I don't know. I don't know if they like actually give the, I suspect that they probably tell the family the truth in terms of like how they were actually died. Like whether the Israeli government was responsible with the airstrikes and whatnot. Ultimately, though, I think the Israeli society still broadly considers these last 6 hostages, even if Hamas killed them, to still be a responsibility of Israel, considering that there has been an active hostage. There has been. You clearly don't know what point blank means. No, they did. The Israeli fucking soldiers did point blank shoot the fucking hostages. What are you talking about? 3 of them. Like they had clear aim. What the fuck? It doesn't get more point blank than that. What do you mean? One of the 3 ran into one was holding a white flag. He ran into another house. They chased him into the house and shot him. Point blank means directly next to. Yeah, yes, up close, dude. Yes. These aren't the 6 hostages that we're talking about. I'm talking about 3, like from a while back. Three hostages managed to escape. 3 hostages managed to escape. They were fucking calling for help in Hebrew. One of them had a fucking white flag. Anyway, then why did the IDF shoot them? What do you mean, brother? First of all, this question is ridiculous because it's something that happened. Okay? That's number one. It's literally something that happened, and you're like, well, why would it have happened this way? As in like, oh, did it not happen? No, it did. Okay? Whether you like to admit it or not, it literally fucking happened. So that's number one. Make no mistake. Close range would be more accurate than point blank, but it doesn't matter. Okay, close range. Not like directly fucking put a gun to his head and popped him. I'm just asking to know, brother, relax. I'm Palestinian myself. Okay, why? If you're Palestinian, you know the fucking answer better than anybody else. Because they thought they were Palestinian civilians. That's why they fucking killed them. Okay? And you don't have to actually, do a little bit of Google searching to figure that out. Because they did say that early on, where they thought that they were Palestinians, and that's why they shot them. Half your audience is Palestinian or Arab. Yeah, here. Alon Shamriz, Yotam Chaim, and Samer Talalka. A deceased military dog's GoPro camera was discovered to have recorded their voices several days earlier. The dog was involved in a military exchange between Israel and Hamas. According to IDF official, the 3 male hostages emerged shirtless out of a building towards the IDF soldiers tens of meters away, one carrying a white flag. An Israeli sniper then opened fire on them, killing Shamriz and Talalka and wounding Haim. After being shot, Haim ran into a nearby building and shouted for help. The battalion commander then ordered the troops to hold their fire while Haim was being persuaded to exit the building. But when he did so, 15 minutes later, a soldier acting against the battalion commander's orders shot and killed him. They changed this narrative 8 times. This was the final narrative that they actually arrived at. As far as I remember, it was a lot closer than a fucking sniper tens of meters away. Israeli troops were primed for an ambush, not the possibility of hostages walking around behind enemy lines in Gaza City. Yeah. Preliminary IDF report. Hostages killed by soldiers wave white flag. One yelled for help in Hebrew. What the fuck is this thumbnail, dude? Yeah. They shot them because they thought they were Palestinian. Okay? Palestinian civilians, because they shoot Palestinian civilians all the fucking time. Okay? I can't believe that this is a question that we have this far into the ongoing genocide, that people still are like, I don't really understand it. Why are the genocidaires doing things that kind of seem like it's a genocide, as in a kill zone? Anyway, where the fuck were we? We're gonna talk about all this shit in a second. There's like leaks from the cabinet too.
As well. Beyond Hersh Goldberg Polin, of course, who was a US and Israeli citizen.
All those redheaded Palestinians are running around. Yes, brother, there are redheaded Palestinians. This is not like Palestinians don't fucking look the way that you think they do. They also look almost identical to Israelis. There's a shit ton of Arab Jews in Israel. And there are Palestinian Christians in Gaza. Like, yes, there are people. There is no, this is something I've talked about quite a bit from the start, okay? If you put Palestinians and Israelis in a fucking lineup, okay, no yarmulkes, no IDF garb, nothing, you will never be able to tell who's Palestinian and who's Israeli, okay? Like, you can't. There are dudes that are literally fucking Arab. They're Arab, but they're Jewish. So therefore, they're Israeli citizens. It's quite similar to the dynamic between motherfucking Greeks and Turks or Armenians and Turks. You can't tell from a fucking lineup. You just can't. Okay? You can't. Yeah, unless they're from Asia or the US. Okay, yes. I love you as a Palestinian, but I disagree with that statement, bro. I guess maybe true for the uninitiated non-Arabs. Brother, what are you talking about? Like, what do you... Dude, you're ridiculous, okay? You are ridiculous if you think that there is any sort of like significant distinction without like anyone talking, without anything like that on a fucking lineup. If you think that there is any sort of fucking distinction between a Jewish person of Arab descent, okay, that came from like fucking Yemen or came from fucking Iraq, okay, or any number of these different places in the region that is just Jewish, but of all from this entire area, okay? If you think that there's any sort of like trait that you can associate to being Jewish, or rather, the distinction is determined via penis inspection? No, because Muslims also fucking get circumcised. So no, you can't even, I know you're trying to make a joke, but even that joke is not correct. Remember when some fucking freak, some ultra Zionist rabid freak early on was talking about how we're going to circumcise the Palestinians? And I was like, bro, what are you talking about? They're Muslim. Of course they're like, with the exception of the Christian Palestinians, like they're fucking circumcised. There are a lot of white Arabs and Palestinians. Exactly.
Born in Oakland, California, moved to Israel when he was just 7 years old. You have Eden Yerushalmi, a 24-year-old bartender who, not live streamed, but was on the phone during her hours-long ordeal trying to flee, to hide from the military.
Why would Hamas kill the hostages right before the IDF found them? I know it's not confirmed that they did it. I'm just trying to understand their potential reasoning. Would it be to add more pressure? Yes. These hostages, some of them were directly named in the ceasefire in the first round of the hostage transfers, okay? So from their perspective, they're like, Israel is not fucking holding to this deal, and they're trying to forcibly extract the hostages. So if they understand that this is, if they're losing their leverage in this circumstance, yes, for their perspective, those hostages being killed in the last moment, whether by Israeli gunfire or by Palestinian gunfire, it causes what is currently happening in Israel from their perspective. And it demonstrably has been I don't know who is responsible for it. Like I said, I'm waiting for confirmation, of course, but it is in their interest, if we're looking at this in a logical manner, it is in their interest to say, like, you don't get the hostages unless you do a deal. It's the same. I mean, it's quite simple when you think about it. You've seen it in movies, you know. Why does the hostage taker in a fucking bank robbery kill hostages? It is to apply pressure to the hostage negotiators. Of course, in movies, usually the police don't fucking shoot through the hostages and then blow up the entire city block and then blow up the rest of the city, as a matter of fact, with no need for like actually extracting any of the fucking hostages. That's what Israel's doing. So it's not like, you know, it's not like the movies at all, unless you're talking about like a World War II style movie.
As they rampage through the Nova Festival, killing, raping and kidnapping as they went. She spoke with her sister. She had her sisters on the phone, and her last words to her sister Shani was, "Shani, they caught me." There was Carmel Gut, 40 years old, the only one of the 6 bodies who were recovered on Saturday, who was not at the Nova Music Festival. She was visiting her parents at Kibbutz Be'eri, just on the outskirts of the Gaza Strip. Her mother was killed that day. Her father survived. And indeed, hostages who were released during the one and only hostage ceasefire deal back in November said that she was like a guardian angel to them, and she was teaching them meditation and yoga. Then you also have Almog Sarusi, 27 years old. He was with his girlfriend of 5 years. She was shot and mortally wounded. He stayed with her to try and help, but then wound up being kidnapped himself and taken into the Gaza Strip. Alexander Lobanov, a 32-year-old Russian-Israeli citizen. He was a bar manager at the Nova Music Festival. He was said to have fled with, helped others to flee to the nearby Be'eri forest to seek refuge, but they were caught, and he was taken captive as well. His wife gave birth to their second child, a boy, 5 months ago, a boy that he will never meet and that will never meet its father. And then finally, there's Ori Danino, 25 years old, who is said to have driven a number of people from the Nova Music Festival to safety in his car. And then instead of staying in the safety that he had found, he turned back around and went back into where the militants were, into the gunfire to try to rescue more people, and then wound up being kidnapped himself as well. So those are the 6. Also worth noting that according to the IDF, there are still more than 100 hostages who are still being held captive in the Gaza Strip, about a third of whom are believed to be dead. Victor, Amra.
Elliot Gocking, thank you. Joining me now to discuss this is former Pentagon advisor for the Middle East, Jasmine El-Gamal. Jasmine, I first want to get your reaction to what we've been learning through Nick Robertson's reporting that 3 of the 6 hostages whose bodies have been found in these tunnels under Rafah, that they were slated to be released in this first phase of a potential deal.
Now they try to make it seem okay because they took hostages anyway. Lol, how pathetic of them. What do you mean?
And that IDF saying that they were brutally murdered by Hamas just a short while before they were reached by the IDF.
That's right. Good morning, Amra, and thanks for having me. And I'd like to start first by just expressing my heartfelt condolences to the families of these hostages whose bodies have been recovered. It's just the latest in a series of really heartbreaking news that's come out of Gaza and Israel.
Hasan, do you know who the historian Benny Morris is? Yeah, more like a fucking hysterical Benny Morris. Yes, he is. He is. Every single day that that Israel continues its genocide, he becomes more and more unhinged. I recently watched him talk to Mehdi Hasan in front of a crowd that literally fucking lost their minds when he said, "I don't know what the term famine means." Okay? He is deeply, deeply unserious. And his former work was obviously very important in uncovering certain aspects of Israeli history, but his current attitude towards his own former work and his current attitudes towards like just being a fucking like open, unabashed, unashamed fucking anti-Arab racist piece of shit is pretty fucking crazy. He was so unhinged that he literally said. He was so unhinged that he said that the person responsible for, I think it was like the UN Human Rights Commission, the person leading the UN Human Rights Commission was a Syrian, and therefore you can't trust an Arab, you can't trust a Syrian with that responsibility. Like, it's crazy. Like, he literally said that as like an own.
Chief prosecutors are.
He said Israeli occupation hasn't bombed any hospitals in Gaza, earning laughs of disbelief from the audience. Here, this is Benny Morris.
For arrest warrants, not just for Hamas leaders, but for the Israeli Prime Minister and the Defense Minister for war crimes and crimes against humanity. And he says he has mountains of evidence. We've all seen with our own eyes the Israelis in Gaza commit war crimes on camera, kill unarmed people who are carrying white flags, blow up apartment buildings, drop 2,000-pound bombs on crowded refugee camps. Can we at least agree, Benny, even if we're going to disagree on genocide, that Israel has committed numerous war crimes since the Hamas war crimes on October the 7th?
I'm fairly sure there have been war crimes, but the war itself is not a war crime, as the Hamas attack on Israel on the 7th of October was. It was a war crime from beginning to end. The aim was to kill as many civilians as possible, which they did, in accordance with the Hamas charter, which is to kill basically every Jew you can get hold of in Palestine.
But I didn't ask about the aim. I asked about the acts that are being committed.
As I said, probably there have been, as in all wars, war crimes.
You accept there have been war crimes?
Yes.
So you would support an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu?
I didn't say that.
Why?
Firstly, there hasn't been an arrest warrant.
I know, there's been a request from the ICC chief prosecutor.
So far, they haven't issued it. I don't know if you can hold a prime minister responsible if a sergeant kills several unarmed people intentionally.
You don't think the Israeli Air Force bombing apartment buildings, refugee camps, mosques, cemeteries?
I like the idea that like all of this stuff just randomly happens. You know what I mean? And that the ICC and the ICJ aren't like conducting a broad, thorough, albeit still probably heavily influenced by Western interests, analysis on the matter before coming to certain conclusions. Like they're not fucking hysterical college campus activists in the way that these guys try to present them, okay? Like, they're conducting serious investigations, man. Serious investigations that the Mossad and the Israeli government regularly try to thwart, mind you. Okay? Like, there is obviously a fucking line from the prime minister all the way down to the fucking soldier committing the crime. And it's a thing that they are choosing to fucking it's a thorough line that they're choosing to investigate. Like, they're actually saying like this exists, this connection exists. What the fuck?
Hospitals, schools, universities, libraries.
Firstly, it hasn't bombed, as far as I know, hospitals. They have attacked.
No expert agrees with you on that.
That's not true. What you're saying is not true.
You'll watch this, but won't watch Mehdi and Victor Gao on China. yeah, of course I'm not going to watch it. It is not because it's against the narrative. It's because I like Mehdi Hasan, and I don't like him behaving like a Western chauvinist when talking to a Chinese official. And that it's more so to preserve his legacy in my mind, okay? And yeah, of course I'm not going to watch some random fucking coverage of Mehdi Hasan like talking to a Chinese official in the midst of like ongoing genocide. This is obviously directly relevant. I wouldn't have even brought this up if a Chatter didn't bring the Benny Morris subject matter up. What the fuck does China have to do with anything? Yes, this is the same like Mao guy. You already said you won't ever watch it, even if it was on topic. Yes, and it is not because of oh my God. I don't give a fuck about Victor Gao and how well he defends China or whatever. Okay, it is more so in my mind to preserve my opinion of Mehdi Hasan. Okay, that's it. I like Mehdi Hasan, but there are plenty of instances where I have been at odds with him in terms of, for example, how he also, in my opinion, highlighted false smears against Jeremy Corbyn being anti-Semitic and shit like that. He's doing a great job with this issue, okay? But you don't have to always agree with everything that a political commentator says. You should practice that sometimes with me as well. You might not agree with all of the things that I believe, all the things that I say, but that shouldn't change your overall worldview on who I am as a person. Okay. The conduct is not rewarded the IDF for military rescue operations. Oh yeah, the conduct is to not reward the IDF for military rescue operations. As far as I remember, they've done it a few times before. Sometimes just when the building is being bombed. And they think an operation is coming even when it wasn't. I think it's wrong. It's definitely brutal, but I'm not sure what any dumb fuck who thinks about military pressure thinks this would happen in this kind of situation. Yeah, and the alternative to that is not to say like, oh, I can't believe how fucking these guys did this, like how crazy of them. The alternative to that is already presented in the form of a fucking ceasefire. So that's the whole point. This is just another fucking this is just another pressure mechanism for Israel to actually come to terms with the ceasefire. That's what it is. Because it's not like if they were on the one hand, if Hamas was on the one hand being like, yeah, we don't want a ceasefire. We just want to kill these fucking people. Okay. And then Israel was conducting this military operation, then yeah, that makes sense. It's perfectly understandable to be like, oh, what the fuck? These guys are psychotic. Okay? Except obviously, if ceasefire is on the table and those hostages are named, okay? Like by name, they're like, these are some of the hostages that we are going to release in the first fucking ceasefire negotiations. And Benjamin Netanyahu's like, nah, dog, I don't give a fuck. I want to maintain military presence in the Philadelphia corridor, in the Netzarim corridor. We're going to do a permanent occupation. I don't give a fuck about this ceasefire. Suck my dick. Then yeah, of course. Of course, like, people are going to get mad at Netanyahu.
True. The only hospital which I remember being bombed was by a rocket fired by the Islamic Jihad by mistake. That's as far as I remember. So Israel has raided hospitals. Let me talk.
Israel's raided hospitals. They've never bombed a hospital is an insane thing to say because they absolutely have bombed the hospitals. They literally bombed the Al Ahli hospital. Okay. They're like, oh, it was an Islamic Jihad rocket that he says, right? Again, inconclusive, but let's say he's correct, okay? Inconclusive, but let's say he's correct that it was actually an Islamic Jihad misfire. Israel bombed that hospital 2 days prior to that explosion at the courtyard. Like, they literally bombed Al-Ahli Hospital, which is so crazy that, like, the idea that, like, Israel has not bombed any hospital is so fucking insane to me, okay? So fucking insane. But that specific hospital, Israel literally fucking shelled with artillery fire 2 days prior to the fucking explosion at the courtyard. Like, what the fuck? Like, even that very specific hospital that he is talking about, Israel openly fucking bombed. It's insane how that's still a narrative that even you were a victim to it. I know, it's fucking crazy. That's how powerful media narratives are, though, because the media immediately went, Israel blew up this hospital again. Holy shit, in the deadliest day in Gaza so far, right? And then they all apologized for it and immediately took Israel's word for it. And then that was over. Everyone was like, oh, I told you so. You're fucking wrong. It's like, there is no proof. All the proof that Israel presented was immediately falsified. Like, immediately. Every single piece of proof that Israel showed was exactly what they've fucking done in the past. Put out correspondence between two Palestinian terrorists being like, oh, we love blowing up our own hospitals. Listen, we are terror children. I am Arab Palestinian. Even though Palestinian is not real, it's not a real thing. We lie to Israel, the most moral army, about it. It's crazy.
Israel has raided hospitals but with infantry.
Let me ask you this
found
question.
Hamas people in their Hamas headquarters, inside hospitals, under hospitals.
Actually, we've never seen the headquarters that Benjamin Netanyahu put a beautiful Bond movie video out for. We've never actually seen that from underneath Al-Shifa. It's been several months. We're still waiting.
But we only hear the pro-Israel side, not the truth that comes out a week later in most cases. Yeah. In the Western world, like, I get it. You usually don't fucking hear. You usually don't hear what the actual truth of the matter is. That's precisely the reason why there's, like, still a shit ton of people. That's precisely the reason why there's still a shit ton of people who are like, I don't understand. Isn't, like, Hamas ruining the fucking peace talks? It's like, bro, what do you mean? What do you fucking mean? Israel killed the principal negotiator, the civilian that was heading the Politburo, okay? A fucking diplomat on Iranian soil in the midst of the hostage negotiations that he was partaking in. There is no better display that you don't want the ceasefire to happen than doing exactly that, okay? It's so fucking crazy, dude. It's so fucking crazy. Like what? The wildest part about it is that, like, what more do you want to hear? Do you want Israeli officials to say, we do not want this ceasefire? That's why we're killing the fucking the leader of the Politburo? Because they did say that. That's the other part. Like, there is, like, word for word, Benjamin Netanyahu has for the past, like, 3 months now openly been like, there's no ceasefire. Get the fuck out of here. We're not going to do a ceasefire. You're going to give us the hostages and we're going to keep bombing you. He has said that bar for bar pretty much every fucking day. He said that to Israeli citizens. He said that to anyone that will listen. And America is like, Hamas, man, really fucking this up, dude. Really fucking the ceasefire negotiations up. Bro, Benjamin Netanyahu said it to the hostage families. He said it in fucking Congress. He keeps saying it. He keeps saying, no ceasefire. What the fuck are these guys talking about? And America is like, no. We're working tirelessly around a ceasefire, and it's Hamas that's ruining the talks. You know? It's crazy. Like, he has telegraphed time and time again that he does not want a fucking ceasefire. Okay? And he keeps adding, like, new protocols, new provisions, all this shit onto the point, onto the conversation that already is, like, that is a done deal. Okay? And it's wild that Americans are still, by and large, deluded by our media into thinking like, oh, well, I read in the news that it's actually Hamas. Anyway.
Over the last 10 months, it's absolutely brutal. To your question, now it is true that reportedly some of the hostages had been slated for
remember,
release. It's been reported.
Hey guys, remember, this is the hospital Al-Shifa that Benny Morris is talking about, which Israel definitely didn't bomb.
We're here in what used to be Shifa Hospital in the north of Gaza and Gaza City. Hospitals should always be...
Hospitals just kind of do that, though, to themselves when they're under great distress, so...
places of safety. Hospitals should always be protected, places of healing. And yet I'm standing around in the midst of utter devastation. Shifa has literally become a graveyard. There are bodies still in this courtyard. The buildings have been completely destroyed.
This is Al-Shifa. This is one of the major hospitals. This is the one. This isn't Al-Ahli. He's talking about Al-Ahli, okay, which is the other hospital that was also, again, that was blown up. This is the major one that's supposed to have a fucking headquarters underneath it, okay? One of the largest hospitals. The largest hospital in Gaza City, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is what they presented it as. This is why they fucking had to do that to it. Because, hey, we made this like 3D rendering. Remember, chat, remember this is what they said was under the fucking Al-Shifa hospital? You remember that?